Good day to you. This is Anagalactic on the first day of August in 2025. And recently I was just going back over my 1,070 videos I've produced in the past 3 years and 2 months now. And oh my goodness, how easy it is to forget. I've taught you so much. I've given you so many secrets of the universe that so few of you have listened to, that I lost track completely of what I had begun to tell you, which will be in the video segment that I'll be showing you as part of this presentation from 2.5 years ago. It was actually November of 2022. That's only 6 months after I began producing. So it was within the first 6 months of my tour of duty here on YouTube, which has come to nothing. It's come to naught. It was a failure. Not to me, but to you. I'm so sorry that I failed you. That's not my fault. I'm apologizing facetiously. I won't stop. I'll continue to produce these for free. I never ask anything from my listening audience. But today we're going to go back to the first video that I ever produced that got 3 likes, except for the one immediately prior. I produced 2 videos in 2 days, the first of which was the Dirac equation, is the second most popular video I've ever produced. It got over 500 views. And that really amazed me. That's nothing by YouTube standards. 500 people, that's nothing. Because you have to understand what that means statistically. It can be checked using YouTube Analytics. 9 out of the 10 of those people you have to throw out the fucking window. Because all they did was click and start to view, and they turn it off within, under a minute. 9 out of 10, that's quite conservative. So 450 views, it got within 3 days. And that means it got about 40 views that were longer than 5 minutes. No one ever watches one of my videos all the way through, with very few exceptions. So that was an enormous success, and it was a superbly done video. It should have gotten about 10 million views. But that's not how things work in this world. It's not how things work on YouTube. It's not exactly sour grapes or just bitterness, but just disappointment. I never thought that I would ever get any views. But once you realize that you might have, it can change your whole perspective. Well, it did. It's because what I'm producing is so fucking important. Nobody is producing material such as I am. I should be known at every university throughout Europe and the United States and world. Should be talking about my work, whatever becomes of it. So this video that you'll be seeing now, it's not very long, none of my videos are, but it's condensed material showing you a brand new number system, absolutely Loctite proved. There is no theory in my work. I'm a discovery scientist. And it's about time I started crowing just a little bit. I'm the most important scientist in the last 70 years. There's no question about that. And you're going to see that in this video clip from 2.5 years ago. I've done this before perennially. About once every 6 months, I would say, just in general, I go back and look at some of my very early videos. They're not all good, I can tell you that, but really it took 6 months to pick up the pace. But once I discovered Ruja Josip Bošković's work, I started making dozens of discoveries of inestimable importance. This solves the paradoxes in physics. I know it sounds preposterous. Well, that's too bad. You have to watch my material now, because I have the answers. Everyone else is just a hypocrite. Nobody knows anything about spaceTime. Nobody knows anything about the quantum. And I've proved why. Wouldn't you want to at least know what I've theorized? These aren't theories. I've proved everything. I've got a new number system for spherical space that literally solves everything in astrophysics. I know exactly what a supermassive black hole is. Nobody else does. I can solve the collapse of the wave function. No one else can. I can explain entanglement and superposition. Nobody else can. You're suffering with calculus. You're suffering with complex numbers. These are errors. This destroyed millions of lives. I can cure it. Well, don't worry, I'll be dead soon. And you won't have to worry about this kind of ranting. I'm speaking to myself now. You couldn't the fuck care less what I say. Whoever you are. Well, I hope you tune in and listen to this. I know you won't. It's been 3 years now. I've gotten over 1,000 views on exactly one video. The next one was 1/3 the number of views. And after that, it just goes down. That doesn't mean 1,700 views on my major discovery of intraprotonic force space. Even the CERN physicists don't know anything about that. I got it. And nobody even cares? Well, Kurt Mungle, Kurt, you were my hero. You are a fucking hypocrite, Kurt. Why have you not contacted me? Did I not reach out to you? Kurt Mungle? Get me on your program. I've got the toe. And you're going to find that out right now. All right, we're going to play this video. And I don't apologize for these emotional antics. I very rarely do this. I don't think I've ever done it quite this severely. But it's your fault. I am not at fault. I have to do this. I'm doing what science demands. If you have to get emotional, you'd better. If people are overlooking you and you have the truth that they need, you've got to start stepping on their toes. Pretty soon I'm going to start blasting some faces. I've already started. I'm not going to stop. I'm a peaceful man, but I'm sorry. Somebody's going to get hurt really soon. I promise that. It's not physical. I don't have any muscles, for one thing, and I don't know how to make bombs, okay? I've never hurt anybody in my life. I never will. But I'm going to bitch slap the first physicist that I can grab by his goddamn neck. You have got to listen to me. All right. I'll have some interjections here so that you'll understand better what I'm explaining. But I'm the world's best presenter of science now. I have mastered science. And you're idiots for not listening to me. I worked hard. I earned this. I am not asking for money. But I guarantee you I'm going to start asking for money. As soon as I get noticed, you're going to pay. Because otherwise you won't listen. Because you're retarded. And I've told you why. So fuck you all. I am going on. Whether you like it or not. Thank you. Here we go. Good evening. We've had our introductions, so we're going to get right into it tonight. The geometry of the universe. In order to bracket this approach, so you'll know ahead of time what it is I'm attempting to do, we wish to quickly review the only geometry that's ever been used in the history of mankind, the geometry of the line. The line is relatively easy to construct, but it's in the basics that one must take careful note of what's going on. And the reason this is so significant in our construction of spherical space is that we wish to draw a parallel in the construction of any space. We've only done this once, the construction of linear space. it can be begun in any number of ways. The way we're taught in school is that the line simply exists. But in advanced, pure mathematics, that is unacceptable. It's fine for a first grader who's being brainwashed. It's okay because the children don't know any better than to accept what they're being taught, because you need to keep it simple. And so it is necessary to teach linear algebra to children the way we were taught, certainly I was, on the number line. The number line is a redundant term. That fact was discovered in my lifetime through the work of John Horton Conway, who was able to finally give a definition for what is a linear number. The literature very often drops the word linear because there is no other, and so it's kind of fruitless to keep saying linear. But I am introducing spherical space, and therefore it becomes critical to spell everything out. That the numbers we use are linear numbers. What is interesting, and I want you to bear this in mind at the outset, because this is the driving motive behind the desire for any other geometry, should that exist, is due to the limitation of linear numbers. The limitation of linear geometry is what it comes down to, because the geometry and the number system are identical, and we've only had one. And so now it becomes critical to my thesis, to my hypothesis, in proving this formally, that the method of constructing a geometric space is already defined, and all we have to do is follow 4 steps. And so I begin with the 4 steps to create the line, which I've already covered in several lectures prior to this, but science needs to be able to summarize. And of course, the limitation to summarization is you at least have to accept that there may be something you need to look into further to justify what I'm going to say. But I can assure you, although you should not accept this, you have to get proof for everything, but I will assure you that the 4 steps that I'm going to show you to construct the linear number system and the geometry of the line are very simple. The first principle that you have to understand about a space, a geometric space, which I expect you must understand by now, so I should not have to need to explain to you the specific meaning of the word space here. It's a geometric space. To construct one, this will end up being the line. So the first step is, in this approach, because you can begin with any one of these 4 steps, but we choose to begin, in the case of the line, with the object. The object is the line. That's step 1. For the sphere, that's going to be the sphere. And it will also go through these same 3 steps to construct spherical space. And through this process, you will see why this was so difficult to see. It's very simple, but there is a trick, and you'll notice it, I hope, but I will also point it out. But I want to go through this quickly for the sake of continuity, and you, if you're clever, will see this on the first pass. But I will go through it a second time, and then you will see it. That's my promise. So the first thing is to identify the object. In this case, it's the line. Then you find the Archimedean balance point and the operator. Once you find the Archimedean balance point and the operator, which is really one step, in the case of the line, the operator is add. Sorry, let's use the other finger. for the line, you have the Archimedean balance point and the operator. The operator is add. And it has an inverse, but we don't know that yet. We're just saying it because, oh, and what is add? Well, all of these pieces fit together, so you have to get them all at once. They interlock. It's synthetic. It's really miraculous that this works for anything, but it does work for the line, and that much we know. Very important to understand the language of science. That's what this is. It's called mathematics, but it's based on geometry. And this is the geometry with the mathematics built in. That is part of the hypothesis that I put forward. The construction of the line. You have the object, the Archimedean balance point. That's going to be 0. And we'll discuss that. But now you have a number. But it doesn't have any meaning until you have an index. And this will be the index of distance. And that's the physical meaning of the number system. It computes linear spatial separation. Extremely important because all physics is based on this fact. That's all we've ever been able to measure, is linear separation between what? What are the things on this line? They're called numbers, but they have to have a geometric representation as well. We call that a point. So a point is a number on the line. And there's a special one that's at the center. This has an extraordinary geometric significance, because why is there a center? We're getting there. But accept the fact that now we have a line with a center that's 0, which has a meaning because the first number representing linear spatial separation between 0 and 1 is the first one. That's called the index, and it has a value, 1. The center has a value, 0. There is another point that's separated by a line segment. That is spatial separation, called distance. It's a space computer. It is a space metric based on the distance from 0 to 1. The 0 and the 1. The 0 and the 1 form the metric of the space, because now you can extend it. 1, 2, 3, out. There is another direction, negative, -1, -2, -3, out. Both of them go out, but they go out in 2 opposite directions. Correct? So far. That is distance. And that's all it is. Linear distance. And now we're done with the line. I have a McDonald proof. Alan McDonald. He's a professor in the Midwest of the United States. Alan McDonald is highly respected for very good reason in his ability to just be as dry as a dried kernel of corn in a silo. This man is just about as clean cut. It's a nitty-gritty thing to have to meticulously prove everything in geometry. He is extremely good at it, and very highly respected. Certainly I do respect Alan McDonald. But I'm not going to go into one of his famous sequences, although I will eventually. You're going to have to accept what I say to a certain threshold. But I hope you can accept that none of this is strange in any way. It's exactly what we were taught in school. But it's important to be explicit because now we're starting over. This is the transformation of the language of science to the integral form. This integration of linear algebra into spherical algebra will be the advance of an entirely fractalized system to a new level of integration. It's a single integration, but the things that get integrated on stepping up from linear to spherical geometry is the integration of 99% of all the problems we've ever faced in mathematics and are currently facing in cosmic science and in subatomic particle physics theory. This will achieve an integral level of understanding. All of it. There is a huge amount of knowledge that we have now about the atom and the constituents of atomic space. The building blocks of the universe are now understood numerically, but they're understood currently in linear language, and that is the problem. It's we're using line language to express spherical reality, and we think we can do it, and we've fooled ourselves into thinking we can use the same methods that we've used forever. Well, certainly in the Industrial Revolution, using numbers and numeric machining to machine numbers that are irrational back down to rationality. And that is our address mode for curvature. And curvature is killing us. It's killed us. We're dead in the water and have been for 70 years. 70 to 100 years dead in the water with linear algebra paradoxes that have fractalized physics into a million compartments. And nobody can dig their way out. That's when you call in a troubleshooter. And that is my department. I'm the one who comes to the scene of this massive, massive traffic accident. Everybody is in a pileup, and nobody can get out. There's no bootstrap left. There's no feedback system left in modern science to correct anything. Everybody is on their own. This has a moral implication, but I'm not preaching tonight. Tonight, I'm constructing the sphere. This is the answer sequence for everything, and this leads directly to the toe, not the gut. The gut and the toe are different. The grand unification theory, the GUT gut, is to unite the strong force with electrodynamic phenomena. That we'll get to. But the big one is the toe, the theory of everything. That's the unification of general relativity with quantum mechanics. You're going to see it tonight. The answer that everybody's been looking at, but they have the wrong language. And it's just like two people that don't understand a word of each other's language talking with each other. The universe is talking to us, is it not? We're trying to understand what the universe is saying, correct? But our language is lines. The Greek line, just lines. Our linear number system and our linear geometry is the only way we look at the universe is with these numbers. The only way we look at it. That's a problem. Because the mathematics does not work. in cosmic space. And quantum space, as I'll be showing you, is cosmic space. And you're going to see all of this, and all the paradoxes just fall over like dominoes. And the grand unification theory, that's deep. But the theory of everything, the unification of QM with GR, I can express to you in one simple geometric term: quantum gravity. I'm going to show you what that is. And in order to do so, you're going to have to see it in the geometry in which it actually is, not through linear algebra glasses. It's spherical, and here is the construction of the universal object called the sphere that is going to unify everything in linear algebra into integral understandable form numerically. It has to be numeric. But what is the problem that we're having with our numbers? They're irrational, and they have zero at the center. You can't have irrational numbers in the universe. A moment's thought will convince you of that. There are no irrational numbers in the universe. Accept that for now. And the next theorem that I'm going to state is there is no zero in the universe. But that is incorrect. As stated, it's at least ambiguous, but I can make it precise and absolutely irrefutably correct. So let me rephrase what I said hastily. There is no linear zero anywhere. There is no such thing as linear zero. That, coupled with the fact that the universe does not recognize irrational numbers, and therefore I, E, and pi are all out the window. But you know, we already have mathematical constructs that define what is pi. But you know, it still stays irrational, does it not? We have to solve that. It cannot be irrational. Well, then you need a new number system. Because our number system is almost infinitely made of irrational numbers. It's just every now and then there's a rational one. John Horton Conway proved that fact. That the rational number line is not rational except on a very tiny percentage of numbers are actually rational on the line. Let's see what happens in spherical space that solves that horrendous problem. You begin by emptying out the universe. Now there's nothing. This is also how you begin to construct the line, but you don't want to really be going into that nitty-gritty detail abstractions with third graders or second graders. But then they teach us addition and subtraction, right? And boy, pretty miraculous stuff. Numbers are pretty cool. For addition and subtraction, it's closed on the line. It's a rational system. This is mimicking, in our understanding as individuals, the exact course of science throughout time is we learn in exactly the way humanity has learned. I'm going to bring you to the edge of what humanity has learned and teach you what humanity is just about to learn from this. You will be the first. The sphere can be constructed very simply. First of all, when you empty out the universe and now there's nothing, do you have any geometry? Well, if you did, you'd have to prove it by some sequence of proofs, but it's very difficult when you don't even have a universe. So you're going to have to use a calculus trick. But if you use the linear calculus trick, you're going to get what we actually have, which is the morass of physics sinking in the quicksand that it made for itself. We don't want that. We want the solution. So we do have to start over, but we actually have to start over without the line. There are no lines in this empty universe. So what's the shape of the empty universe? You might say that it must be spherical. And you would be intuitively correct. I would certainly understand you saying that. It would be what I would say. It sure seems to be spherical. But science is a bitch. You actually have to prove that. Why do you think that it's spherical? We're going to have to be sure that we know why that is true. It is true, I'll just give it away, but how about a real quick proof? This is not going to be like any proof that you've ever heard before, because it sounds insane. Well, you're trying to kickstart the universe. Do you think maybe there might be a moment of insanity? The key to this is to use the calculus trick of the delta. That what you're going to have to do first, before you create the universe, is you're going to have to create a meta-universe that's only in your mind, and then see if you can match it to physical reality. I'm going to show you that that is actually very easy to prove. And I hope you like this, because this unifies the concept of linear space and spherical space, so you'll know the direct relationship between them, which I will then prove, not in this lecture, but in an upcoming lecture. That is the definition of the calculus. The calculus has extraordinary meaning. But as long as we're looking at the calculus from the point of view of linear space, we're getting crumbs. We're already using the wrong system, because we could be using the integral system. And that's what I'm going to prove in the construction of the sphere, that it integrates the construction of the line. So let's do it. First, we're going to do a line. We start with the Archimedean balance point of 0 and say that that is a point. And now we have the first object. That is a point. And now we extend it to 2 infinities. That is a straight line and the definition thereof. Except we have not yet defined infinity. So what is it? Well, we made a mistake in describing what we're doing by saying we're constructing a sphere. We hypothesized that it's spherical, and now we're trying to prove that. But we have to amend what we said before. We're trying to create an unbounded sphere. That is the secret of this proof. You have to create an infinite sphere in one step. Can you prove that? Intuitively, we can see it, but you have to actually establish this by a definite sequence of proof. Why are you sure that the universe, when it's empty, is an unbounded sphere? Here's why. You make a point and make a line. What does that line do? It touches infinity at 2 points, correct? That's the definition of a straight line. It intersects infinity at 2 points. And now I'm going to introduce to you a theorem that's known. And you'll see the significance of that straight line with respect to spherical space. Where did you draw that straight line? It was in some kind of space. Well, you just found something about the edge of that space, right? The line that you drew went to 2 infinities and disappeared, correct? Well, those 2 places where the line disappears is the edge. Well, it's an unbounded edge, but you got to say something because you're here. Something's here already. Well, that's where we're forced to begin. You have a consciousness. What is your consciousness geometrically? This is the measurement problem, by the way, brought down to its absolute basis. What are you? You're a point. And you have to look at my head. Is it about spherical? It's got a round spherical shape, right? Well, where's my consciousness? Is it over here? Over there? At the edge? Where is it? It's at a point. And so the correct definition of consciousness is as a point. Because that's the only thing that it could be. You might later extrapolate on that and say, no, it's a spherical waveform that goes out from the head. It's a field, maybe, but whatever it is, it has a center. And that can be proved by your existence. So just the fact that you are in the universe means that there's a center. It's in the center of your head. But it's not the center of the universe. It's only one center of a universe. And that's the multiverse theory, the multi-universe theory. Is because there's so many centers, there are that many universes. But that's not true. And you'll see why in a moment. This is very simple. But it's interesting how these basic steps have been misinterpreted in order to get at the secret. There is a secret. We're cracking it. This is the right way to crack the secret. When you make the line, it touches a dual infinity. That has to be a sphere, or it wouldn't hit 2 points. If you rotate that line all the way around, it still reaches the same 2 points. This is called a ray. And if you take all the lines coming out from the point as one line, well, you could just imagine it just all goes out like a spherical ray of light. And touches what? The spherical edge. And that's the definition of the universe geometry. Whatever you do, from the point of view of a human being, you're beginning with spherical space. And therefore, when you draw a line, you're making a derivative space. And that is a fact that I will prove to you by the definition of the calculus itself. This is very deep. The line has to be drawn in your metaspace. Well, where did you get that space to draw the line in? By drawing the line, you showed that the space you're in is spherical. Erase the line. Start over. You know that it's spherical. It's an unbounded sphere. That's empty space. Is an unbounded sphere. We know that now. It's been proved. This is Euclidean proof. So we know it's spherical space that's empty. Now what you do is you grab the edge, since you know it's there, and you haul it in to its center. That's the center of unbounded spherical space. Unbounded spherical space has a center. Now we need to define the center and the edge numerically. And now we need an operator for the space. We know that add is the operator for the line. But nobody ever said, what's the operator space for multiply and divide? Do they have their own space that's not the line? Yes, they do. Multiply and divide are not operators on the line. They're operators on the sphere. That's what was overlooked, is that multiply and divide are a different geometry. They define the geometry of the sphere, and now we're going to prove it. using multiplication instead of addition. The line makes 1, -1, 2, -1, 3, -3. Right at the center is a special number 0. That's called the additive identity. The identity of multiplicative space is called the multiplicative identity, and I think you already know it's not 0. And therefore, multiplicative space does not begin with 0. It doesn't have an Archimedean balance point that is 0. Only the line has that number. Multiplicative space has as its lowest number 1. The whole universe begins with 1, the number 1. I'm going to show you what that object is that represents the number 1. What does the number 0 represent? A point. What does the number 1 represent? Not a point. It's something else. What is it? Well, you already know, but let's prove it. You grab the edge of space and you collapse it down to a point. Now you have no edge, right? But yes, you do. All you've done is in your mind is you've normalized the extent of space to its center. So now you have two numbers, the one at the center and the one at the edge. Those must be in multiplicative space. Well, let's relate them together using multiply and see what happens. And here's the trick, which I'll be explaining, but just accept my steps for now. You make up a number called infinity, and that's a number. Only it has a very special characteristic. It's imaginary. Yeah, that would make sense, since we don't have an actual number that represents spherical infinity. So we just call spherical infinity the edge of this space is infinity over 1. We'll want 1 in there, and I'll show you why, but just infinity over 1 is exactly the same thing as infinity, okay? So infinity over 1 is at the edge. Well, let's say that the center now has to have a number. Well, what do you have? You have a number that's at the edge, and you have a number that's at the middle. Where is 1? Let's see if we can make these two imaginary numbers multiply to 1. Well, you make the center 1 over infinity. And then when you multiply them together, infinity over 1 times 1 over infinity, you get 1, which is in between the center and the edge. That is a sphere. And it has the value of 1. And now you have the ability to metricize spherical space. This will solve our basic problem with angular momentum, because angular momentum is on a circle. And now we know that it's part of a spherical function. And this describes everything from quantum mechanics to the Big Bang, is based on angular momentum, which is on a circle, which is irrational, and we don't want that. Can we unitize it? We just did. We just did. And now the circumference of circular and spherical space, and I'll prove this to you, that it's also the circle, has a value of 1. It has a value of 1. That means that curved space is unitized. That's the answer. And in the next lecture, I'll be describing to you the number system of spherical space. But to introduce it, to show you that this has immediate value, we now know what the center of the universe is geometrically. It's a sphere. The sphere forms the center of any cosmic system. Does not have a point at the center. Nothing in the universe has a point at the center. Why not? Because a point is linear 0. There is no linear 0. What does that mean about the center of the sphere? You can't reach it. And now I'm going to prove it to you that you can't. 1 over infinity at the center and infinity over 1 at the edge multiply to make the sphere, but they cancel the center and the edge. They go back to being imaginary. And so you have an imaginary point at the center. It has no value. It cannot be reached. To the same proportion that the edge cannot be reached. You might want to think about that for the next 36 hours continuously to understand the ramifications of that statement. There is no center point. Why not? Because space itself stops going in at the sphere. That's why an atom represents the number 1. Not an irrational number on tau, not a calculus-derived sine-cosine number. It's one number. The number 1 is at the center of the universe. The universe is a sphere with no center and no edge. And that describes everything in the universe without lines. And where do the numbers live? If the surface of the sphere is 1, as we just proved, where are the other numbers? Infinity just disappeared, so now there's an imaginary edge, which makes perfect sense. And to the degree that you can't reach it, you also cannot reach the center, because that's the inverse of infinity. You can't reach infinity, so you can't reach the center. They're both imaginary, but nothing else is. And that completes the definition of the universe, geometrically. It's a sphere with no center and no edge. And this gives us a number system for the universe that comes out from multiplicative space. The surface of the sphere is defined as a 2-component number, 1 over 1 times 1 over 1. The next number is the quantum number. The only number in the universe that differs from 1 is 2, with nothing in between. But we know that there's a number in between 1 and 0. Yes, there is. For the number 2, there's a number going in called 1/2. And when you take the next quantum jump to the next electron level you're starting to see now, it jumps again to 3. And this number jumps from 1/2 to 1/3. This approaches infinity. This approaches inverse infinity. And that is the number system of physical space. A 2-component number. A 2-component number is the lowest componency index necessary for space-time. If you stick with linear numbers, you have a 1-component number. That can only be distance, dears. No matter what you do to that line, you're never going to get curvature out of space-time. It's physically and geometrically impossible. But you get it with a 2-component reciprocal number. All of them multiply to 1. And so the sphere is a shell that's at the center of anything. The Earth has a value of 1 at the surface. And so the Earth surface is a universe. It's one of the universes that makes the entire universe. But where does that stop? Because you can see there's more than one center. It's every center is the center. You have to integrate them, right? That's spherical space. Is the integral of all those universes. But you can see there's still something missing. What's missing? All the numbers fill space now. The reciprocal numbers fill the space in shells going in and out. The quantum shells of Max Planck's discovered space. The quantum numbers. These are the quantum numbers. 2 times 1/2 is the frequency wavelength relationship, which Max Planck claims multiplies to light speed. Light speed? Shouldn't that multiply to 1? Yeah. This 1 has the value of light speed. So the sphere is light speed. That's a 2-component number. Distance over time. That's only 1/2 the number. Distance over time. That's light speed measures at a distance, which is the only way we can measure light speed, is as a distance. It has a distance of 300 million units. Of what? Time. Time is divided into that. Well, what's the value of time? It's 1. It's always 1. Well, Albert Einstein said it's never 1. The value for time and time-space is never 1. And that's enough. That's 42 minutes. It's the beginning of the number system that unlocks physics. Is 2-component reciprocal number space. All the linear numbers, the entire linear system that we use is embedded. It's not lost. It's integrated so you can use it to compute heaven. That's what we want. We'll be right back with more of the in-depth mathematics of this new space. And what we've left out is exactly what Einstein told us we can never leave out. So we're not done. We don't have time on this sphere yet. Where does time come into this sphere? It's a consistent closed space for multiplication and division. There are no irrational numbers in this system. Max Planck handed that to us on a silver platter. The quantum number system is rational, with no division by 0. 2 1/2 is the lowest number in the universe. There is no 1. It's light speed. Everything else is more and less than that in time-space. And those are the quantum shells of spherical space that describe the flight of the photon in 2 forms. Yeah, the wave-particle duality is geometricized. Absolutely geometricized. And that solves the quantum paradox. That's what we're going to be going into in November. The solution to the quantum paradox complex. This will also answer the problem in astrophysics with the singularity. And there's only one singularity, and it's not gravitational. There's no singularity. There is no time horizon. There is no Schwarzschild limit. All of these are contrivances of linear algebra-addled brains because they haven't evolved. They can't. Well, you're going to have to now because I'm here. And I'm going to show you where you went wrong. To heal. To heal it. Do you want it? We'll see. That's 45 minutes. Anagalactic. We'll be right back with you with spherical geometry and the spherical number system, which I'm going to teach you. Requires the injection of energy into the universe, which starts the sphere to rotate. This will define universal rotation, currently thought to be non-existent, again, because of linear blindness. Linear blindness. They're blind. And I'm going to restore their vision. Let's see if they try to kill me for doing that, just as they did my master. We'll be right back.